Hi everyone, this is Snooks. Do you know what's stopping most couples from having a great or phenomenal marriage? It's settling for one that's good or just okay.
That's why we're inviting you to go to marriedintocrazy.com to watch our free webinar and then register for our marriage communication workshop at the end of the month. It's a free workshop that'll give you valuable tools to understand and communicate on a whole other level with your spouse or loved one.
So register today and let us be an ally for your marriage. The link will be in the show notes. Now let's get ready for the podcast. If I'm having a bad day, you having a bad day.
There isn't a single burden when you're married or in a committed relationship that you're supposed to carry by yourself. There's not a single, I don't care what the burden may be. Finances, relationships, spiritual, sexual.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engines.
Whether you've been married 1 or 20 plus years, at some point, you realized you were married into crazy.
And that's what our podcast is all about. We offer love, laughter, and a dose of reality as we unpack this crazy thing called marriage.
So sit back, relax, and get your ear hustle on. It's time to start the conversation.
All right, let's go.
Welcome to episode 117 of Married into Crazy with Snooks and Lovey. I'm Lovey.
I'm Snooks.
Why are you looking at me like that? You're looking at me like you're about to do something. Look,
Really?
I never know what she's going to do.
Whatever.
She says, okay, well, this is how we're going to start off. And then she'll do something completely different just to throw me off,
That's not true.
just to see how I'm going to respond.
Excuse me. That's not true.
You getting COVID-y over there? Look, did you guys hear that? Okay, so look, first off, we're coming back from Thanksgiving and we had a wonderful Thanksgiving. It was loud, it was boisterous, and no, we didn't throw a party.
No, we had no more than 10 people at our house.
It was just our children, our 3 grandchildren, and my brother-in-law,
Mhm.
and 2 of his kids. That was it. But our grandchildren ran this house. Isaiah, God bless him. Yeah, I mean, those of you that have been with us for a very long time have heard the trials, the tribulations. You were here when he was born prematurely, and the micropreemie, 3 months in the hospital, and NICU, all of that. Well, that little dude has become a little baby terrorist. He is in this house
Yeah, he's
daring people to stop him.
he's literally the Tasmanian devil.
Oh my goodness.
Literally. And I'm like, dude, Gigi love you, but I promise you I will get with your program. He look at me like, Gigi, you ain't gonna do nothing.
Here's the funny thing. He is such a miracle. He had hemorrhaging on both sides of his brain. I forget the classifications, but one of them was the worst classification for a long period of time. And the other one started off as a low grade hemorrhage, but then progressed to a higher grade. And then somehow or another, it reversed. I don't say somehow, prayer. For those of you that are out there praying, and then our families that were praying and our prayer warriors that are out there, that's what reversed it. But this little guy is off the charts when it comes to his intellect. I'm not just saying that because I'm Papa. I'm saying that because this little dude, he knows that he'll reach for something, and before he touches it, he will turn his head to look to see if anybody is watching him, because he knows. He knows. He's only about 13 months, 14 months old?
He's 15 months.
See, I don't do that. I just he's a year and some change.
He'll be 16.
So,
months.
Yeah, but he'll start to touch something, and then he'll look around like, is anybody looking? And then he'll do like this little sly smile and then still reach. This little dude, he knows exactly what he's doing.
He's funny too because so we have stairs and we normally put the baby gate up, but his sisters were here, so they're running up and down the stairs. And so I'm like, Isaiah, no, don't climb the stairs. And he knows exactly what I'm saying. So he stops and he'll sit down. As soon as I turn around, he starts trying to go up the stairs. I won't say trying to go up the stairs, but he climbs up the stairs. So I was like, Isaiah. And I'm standing there looking at him. And he starts crying because he doesn't know how to get down. I said, come here. I didn't realize. I was like, come here. But he couldn't come. I had to go and get him. So he's putting his arms out and he's starting to get upset because I'm like, I'm not going to pick you up. I said, come on.
So funny. So funny.
Of course I picked him up. But he climbed on top of a box. I watched him climb on top of the box, and he stood there, and then he starts looking around like, oh shoot, I can't get down. And I'm standing right next to him, but I'm just outside of arm's length. And Kiana starts laughing. I said, look at him. He's getting upset because he doesn't know how to get down. And so she was like, sit down, sit down. And he starts, baby fussing, whatever. So he starts like reaching out for me, and I moved my leg. I was like, nope, you shouldn't have got up there. I said, you shouldn't have got up there. So I'm standing there watching TV with the girls. Of course, I'm right there so that if he makes a move.
So you're watching TV and you let him sit up there and cry on the box?
I did. I was right there.
Look,
you won't get up there again.
Meanwhile, I'm in the background. Papa got you, man. Remember, Papa's the one that saved you.
Oh Lord, today. No.
Look, I know you don't want to hear grandparent stories. For those of you that are married, it's one of those things where, as you know, we're coming up on our 24-year anniversary in January.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we want to do is really talk about some of the things that helped us get here and what keeps us from kicking the other one out at this point in our relationship.
Well, what I kind of was, we talked a little bit about Thanksgiving and how we had a great Thanksgiving, but there was we received some very sad news. Someone that was very close to us, he committed suicide, and it was a shock to us, and it just makes me think about the people who are struggling. I know that a lot of times, I won't say a lot of times, but I know that holidays are hard for some people.
Mm-hmm.
For various reasons, maybe they've lost someone, or they're by themselves or whatever. But it's during this time of year that it seems like people start to struggle a little bit more. So one thing for even us personally, Thursday is our son's birthday, but it's also the second anniversary of our nephew and godson, Isaiah, when Isaiah committed suicide.
Right.
And he was struggling with depression, and the person that committed suicide, he struggled with depression, and he struggled with depression for years. And his wife knew that he was, she was there for him or whatever. But it's funny that I won't say it's not funny, but when you're dealing with depression, people, well, okay, let me back up. So his family is upset at his wife because she didn't like make it known that he was suffering. He was dealing with depression, and his brother knew that he was depressed, but a lot of the other family, I guess, they didn't really understand, or they didn't know how severe it was. Yeah. And so they're like upset with the wife because she didn't come out and say anything. And so it's like, being a spouse of someone who deals with depression, there's that's hard on them. I kind of got offended because I'm like, how are you gonna get mad at her? She's the one that's there every day. She's with him, and she's committed to him, and she's trying to help him deal with whatever he had to deal with. And to just be upset at her, I think that that's unfair, because you lost your family member, but she lost her husband.
The challenge is she's living in the trenches, right there with him during this really trying time. Or it's not like it's a periodic or episodic thing. It's something that people live with. And there's always the outside individual like, well, just you should have did this for him or her, or you should have did this, or did you try that? Did you try this? And what we try and do is talk about these things and offer these solutions. And it's coming from a place of love, but we offer these things from a rational standpoint, because generally we're not the ones that are going through the challenges. We don't know what it's like. There's a darkness. I've heard it described a variety of different ways from people that experience depression.
So I just want to and we can get down into it and
I
be
wasn't
very.
done with my thought, but okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just messing with you.
I was like, I thought you stopped talking. Um, we like to be very transparent with everyone, our listeners and stuff. And we talk about when we say we talk about ourselves. So I'm going to talk about myself, and then you could talk about how you deal with me when I deal with, you know, when I'm dealing with my depression. So
Hmm.
one thing about myself, I call myself, well, I won't even say I call myself now. I label myself as a functioning depressive. um I deal with depression. I've always dealt with depression for as long as I can remember. But it's not funny, but for me, I never knew that it was depression, because it was just how I was. It was just how I I would wake up some days and I felt sad. And then, I had episodes, I guess. Now that I look back on in hindsight, I realize and I recognize them to be episodes to where I just can't do anything. I just call them, my cry days. And some cry days were worse than others. Some were I just couldn't even do anything, but just cry. And just, you wake up with this blanket. My blanket was on me. And as soon as I wake up in the morning, I know that, oh, I'm in depression, or I'm having a depressive bout right now, because I wake up and for about 5 seconds, maybe, I'm okay. And then I don't know what it is, but I don't want to say it triggers, but I'm just like, oh, I'm heavy again, so my blanket's on me. So I know that, okay, now I recognize it to be depression. So early in our relationship, Lovey, I used to get offended because Lovey was like, there's something wrong, like there's something wrong with you. And he wasn't saying it in a way that was condescending or putting me down, but I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, that's not normal, Rana. And I'm like, it's okay, this is just how I am. And he was just like, no, that's just not normal, because, how I was behaving. I wasn't, and I never looked at like I was debilitated where I just couldn't, like I said, there every now and then I'd have, one of those. I don't have them often to where I couldn't do anything, but you would be like, no, that's just not right, and you need some help. And of course, I got offended by it because I'm like, I ain't crazy. There's nothing wrong with me. But I never really looked at, I never identified, excuse me, depression as to be a form of a mental health issue, like a mental illness or something like that. I I was very upset, and I thought that you were just like talking about me.
Being a jerk.
Well, kind of, because I'm like, oh, I'm number one, I'm sensitive. And so, of course, I cry. So it's my cry day. And if I feel this kind of way, then just leave me alone. And I just wanted to just be left alone. But um, now in my, having studied about mental health and depression and just the various ways that people deal with it, I recognize it for what it is. So, um where am I going with this? I was going to say, I was going to ask you, how you what was your how did you feel when having to
Dealt
deal
with
with
you?
me? You were done with me?
I said, dealt with you?
Oh
How did
yeah,
I
I
feel?
thought you said done with me. I was like, what are
I
you
was
talking
done with
about?
you? No. Um, I'll be completely honest. It was, you feel helpless because you know that and it's not that there's something wrong with you, and it's not that you're not normal. It's just that you're not the you that I've been used to. Something was off, something was amiss. And there was a sadness that just seemed pervasive. And then it would go away. And because of that swing, that pendulum would swing, and it would swing so hard that I would think that, there's value because we believe in therapy. We've talked about therapy. We've been through therapy. And so I would talk about, well, maybe you should go talk to someone about this. Oh, there's nothing wrong with me. And, that was your general response.
Mhm.
And I'm feel like I'm walking on eggshells right now because you put it out there. What's changed?
What do you mean what's changed?
We're talking about it, but you haven't still, I'm kind of calling you out. You still haven't gone to see a therapist or see anyone about the depressive moods. And I think you've put countermeasures in place.
Mhm.
And like you said, we've come up with those terms like cry days, what have you. You just need to get a good cry in. And I've heard other people say the same thing. But the challenge is that there's only so much self-help that I believe that an individual can do. And we as human beings have a tendency to think, oh, I got it. Because society tells us time and time again, oh, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Well, okay. So that's fair, but I never looked at it like I need medication because I mean, there
Okay,
are
let me stop
forms
you.
of
Let me stop you there. Therapy
I,
or going to see somebody does not equate to
right.
medication.
I know, but okay, when you were talking to me about it, that was the one thing that you kept talking about was, I need medicine or, I think you're clinically depressed and I think you need to get some,
I said it helps have a discussion, talk to somebody.
and I did when I went to counseling by myself. I did go to counseling and she was like, okay, maybe you need to be on something. And I was like, no, because in my ignorance, I felt like I did not want to be on something that would alter me and make me not be in control of me, if that makes any sense. I felt like, well, if I take medicine, um, it's gonna change my response, and just thinking about taking something that was intimidating to me. So I didn't do it, but I also believe in, like you said, there's psychotherapy, which is talk therapy, and it's you learning how to treatment techniques and that kind of thing.
Coping mechanisms and so
Coping
forth.
mechanisms, yeah, talking about what the emotions are, changing, how they what the thoughts are, the behaviors, and just that kind of stuff. So I started really looking up on that stuff and I started studying it. And I feel like I got a handle on it because I still go through depression. I deal with it, but I don't know. Have you seen,
No, it's nothing like it was in the past.
So, but with that being
I don't get to
said,
finish my thought.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was like, okay, I get to ride in the
I'm just gonna-
sidecar.
I'm just gonna cut you off every time you try to talk.
No, but no, I was just going to say that you were much, I don't want to say better because it gives this connotation that something's wrong with you. And
Mhm.
and that's not that something's wrong with you. It's just that sometimes it just seems a little off, like you're 100% self, which is okay. I think we're all off in certain areas. But I do also believe that this time of year brings a level of anxiety, depression, melancholy
Mhm.
that isn't around the remainder of the year. I was speaking with earlier today. I had a coaching session with one of our clients, and she deals with this all the time. Not as a person that's depressed, but dealing with the ramifications of people that are suffering from severe depression, and then they do the ultimate danger to themselves, committing suicide, what have you.
Mhm.
And she was saying that depression contributes heavily to the homicide and suicide rate where she's at, and she's in a position where she has to deal with death a lot
Mhm.
in her role. And so we always talk about countermeasures and balancing out stuff. But I asked her, how do you deal with these individuals or these environments that you have to step into and carry this weight and be the person to help other people relieve their burden and then turn around and deal with the after effects and then not drag that with you into your home and so forth. and she's a very prayerful individual, and so she was just talking about how that's a big part of it. Of course, she'd say the coaching and all of that helps as well, but she just kept coming back to how any given year, this time of year, the holidays, Thanksgiving through the end of the year, because it really starts to tick up a little bit after Thanksgiving. But in the latter part of the year, some of it's weather, some of it's the melancholy of you don't have a loved one, or you don't have all those things that society and Madison Avenue tells you you're supposed to have this time of year. They get depressed, but and then it ratchets up the negative the negative response. The pendulum swings one way, like, oh my God, it's Christmas and it's just the most wonderful time of the year. Well, the pendulum swings that way, but then the ball has to go in the opposite direction as well. And then it swings to, I have nobody to spend this holiday with, and I'm in the same place I was last year, or these variety of things, or nobody loves me, and then people act out, and it's not rational thinking. I've never seen you go down that path to where I didn't think you were rational. I think that's the part that I think gets a little dicey. Like when we lost Isaiah, there were some things, he had different things going. He had PTSD, severe PTSD. The individual you're talking about that we just recently lost, I wasn't aware of it. And people
Right, you would
mask
never ever.
ever. They're usually the life of the party. The people that, because the most common phrase, and she even said this, the most common phrase when you hear about this is, I would have never thought that person. I can name other people that I would think, oh yeah, that person, if anybody's gonna commit suicide, it's gonna be that person. And it's never them. It's the one person that is usually supporting everyone else, but they put on this great mask. There's that one pharmaceutical commercial.
Yeah, Cialis. I think it's
No.
Cialis.
No.
Cialis?
Okay, Miss Tinder. Last week it was talking about Tinder. This
What
week
is
you throw
Cialis?
Cialis is for ED, erectile dysfunction.
Okay. Sorry. But you're talking about the one with the fan at the church van. I call it
But
the
yeah,
fan.
but it's the one where they put the mask up.
And she's smiling. Yeah.
People put on a facade, and it's hard. And I think sometimes early on, I think you put on a bit of a facade as well, because everyone was relying on you.
Well, see, you call it a facade. Like I said, since I can remember, I mean, I was probably 13 years old. And I remember having those cry days. I remember, or not it wasn't a day, it was a moment. It was, I always had that sadness, was always with me. Um, it was probably more so then than it is now. But I just took it as, well, this is just how I am. I'm sad sometimes, and it's whatever, because I always, in a couple of days, I'm back to normal, or I'm happy again, or whatever it is. But I never thought of it as, like I said, it wasn't until you started saying something to me about this is not normal. And I think I was so offended, because I'm like, this is my normal. This is this is just who I am. I never shared with anyone in my family um why, that I had these sad bouts. And it's so funny too, because I didn't tell my aunt, one of my aunts, she caught me on a sad day, and she was like, girl, what you crying for, or something. And I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm just kind of sad, and she made me feel so silly, because what you sad for? You ain't got nothing to be sad about, and blah blah blah, whatever. And probably at that moment, that's probably when I realized, okay, I probably should keep this to myself. So I never talked to my mom about, I'm sad, and I don't know why I want to cry, or whatever, and I feel some kind of way. So I always kept it to myself, you know. Um and looking back on it, that's pretty sad. It kind of makes me want to cry right now, because I'm suffering by myself, and I'm suffering, but not knowing that maybe I didn't have to suffer, or maybe I didn't,
You see, you're talking past tense. You're saying maybe I didn't.
no,
but it still goes. It hasn't gone away.
No, because I don't. No, it hasn't gone away, but it's not like it used to be. I mean, I don't think I'll ever get rid of being depressed. I haven't, I have depressing some days I'm depressed, and some days I'm not depressed. I don't think that I'll ever not be, just because it's just part of my makeup. That's kind of how I feel. I don't know anyone who's always happy all the time, but I'm not trying to just just say, oh, it's whatever. But maybe I am kind of saying
Oh,
it's,
that's
oh,
exactly
it's
what you're
whatever.
saying.
Well, okay. But for myself, now that I know how to, there are techniques, and there's things that I do that I'm like, okay, I recognize up having one of those moments. So I have my own little routine of, and sometimes I just don't want to be bothered. Just let me just cry it out. Let me just, I'll clean. I'll put my music on. I'll do different things. And then towards the end of the day, I'm feeling better. I don't think of it as, it's not a danger to myself, to our relationship. So I don't, I think you're probably, I don't want to say you're offended by it. You probably have more of an issue with it than I do, obviously, you know, even though it's not what it used to be. I just accept it as, okay,
And
I
that's
deal
fair.
with depression, and okay, when I wake up in the morning, now I'm able to verbalize, hey, having a day. I'm not trying to, I don't feel ashamed about it anymore. Like I said, when my aunt made me feel bad about being depressed, and I was like, oh, maybe I need to keep this to myself. Now I don't have to do that, because even the kids are aware that, okay, mom's, I'm sad today, and so they're like, oh, okay, got it, you know.
Well, I think, well, first off, let me just say this, that for those of you that are listening, you're thinking, okay, what does this got to do with relationships? I think it
Well, I
has,
mean, it has everything
it
to do
has
with
everything,
relationships. I
has
mean,
everything to do with relationships.
because, and one thing that, I feel like, um when we're talking about myself and how I was dealing with it, I wasn't being honest with you about it, and I probably felt like I couldn't trust. Well, I know I didn't feel like I could trust what you're saying. I thought you were just overreacting about whatever, how I was feeling. But there needs to be a measure of honesty and trust in the relationship. If
Right.
you are someone that is dealing with depression or any type of, call it for what it is, mental health disorder, because depression is actually defined as a mental health issue, mental health disorder. There's different levels of it, but you should always be open and honest with your partner, and feel like, okay, hey, this is what's happening with me, this is what I have, or whatever, this is what I've been. If you're diagnosed with it, even if you're not diagnosed with it, but you're thinking that, "Ooh, I kind of do some of the same stuff that Snooks has gone through," or whatever,
Right.
you know be just disclose that information prior to, you know, an onset of an episode, because you had no idea until you was, what the heck are you crying for? That's just not normal. And I'm like, no. And at that point, I'm trying to find anything sad to watch so I could just get it out. I just got to get this out. I got to get my cry out. I got to whatever. And you're just like, that's not right. That's just weird to you,
But and that was wrong, because I was very immature in the respect that I was expecting you to live your life the way that I live mine, according to my emotions and my catharsis methods of getting things out, and this isn't about a male female type thing, because
No,
check it out, because
absolutely not.
some people that maybe out there like, oh, well, she's just being hormonal, does it happen once a month or whatever? No, that's not the case,
Mhm.
because the two people that we're talking about that unfortunately experienced depression and committed
Oh
suicide,
yeah, they were both males.
they were both men.
Yeah, they were both males.
And not to say that women don't
No,
have those
women, yeah,
challenges,
yeah.
but it's one of those things where it's not a male female thing. There's a couple of things at play. I believe there's mental health challenges can arise in anyone, but I also think that we have, particularly in communities of color, when you look at Hispanics and African Americans, we have a tendency to not place value in going to see a physician or talk to clinicians.
Well, I think a lot of times too, you feel like, well, I mean, you could give me some technical stuff, but sometimes it's environmental, you know, these things happen because there's not all mental health issues don't are not just from genetics or biological, you know, some of them are environmental,
Agreed.
you know. So if I feel like I don't think you can relate to what I'm saying or how I'm feeling about whatever, why am I gonna waste my time? You know, and I don't think that for myself. I'm again, it wasn't because I didn't think that someone would relate to it. I just felt like because I lived with this for so long, this is just who I am. You know, no one knew that I felt the way that I felt, you know, experienced some of the the sadness that I experienced, you know, I just didn't feel like I didn't trust that I could tell anyone because my mom, like I said before, my mom was single mom, and you know her thing was I got to make sure my kids are taken care of. I have to make sure that there's food on the table, and when I look at that, I was thinking those are the things that were important to her. Her taking care of us was food on the table. She has to work, clothes on our back. We have shelter. I never thought, I never connected my sadness to be something that my mom would be able to help me with. Does that make sense?
Well, you didn't think it was relative. You didn't think it was anything that she would identify with.
Or even think that it was important because, like my aunt already made the comment, what you sad for? You know, you don't pay no bills, you don't have blah blah blah, you don't you all your needs are met. So why would you ever be sad?
I can see that.
You know, and one thing though, I feel like it was a blessing for me, and I really feel like it was a blessing for me to experience that so early and identify something is not lining up because now I have children and I can tell with my kids, okay, there, what's going on? You know, why are you feeling this kind of way, or why are you sad about whatever? You know, so when they started, or Shanti more specifically, started having crying bouts or feeling sad, I'm like, okay, I'm recognizing um, some of these behaviors of things that how I felt, and so I was able to broach that subject and talk to her and be like, what's going on? And so when she was like, I don't know why I'm feeling the way that I feel, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's, you know, the things that I didn't share with my mom or my mom wasn't able to talk me through, I now am able to talk with Ashanti and be like, okay, this is not, you know, how it's okay to have some cry days because I have them too, but not like this, you know. So something is not, you know, right. You understand what I'm
Right.
saying?
But it's not that, and I know you're not saying this, but it's not that your mother fell short in any way, shape, or form.
No, absolutely not.
Oh,
My
no, I'm
mom
not,
did not even know.
I know, but I'm just saying that I think what's beautiful about that is that what you're attempting to do, or what you have successfully tried to do, is be the person that you needed when you were going through these challenges. And I think that we, as from a couple standpoint, that's the greatest gift that we can give each other, is to be that person for ourselves that we needed in our times of need, rather than trying to power through or to be extra macho or extra, whatever, superwoman or superman, and trying to be more, versus really recognizing that, there's some challenge that I went through. And I think that I would be in a better or a different place if I would have had this type of person there for me. And then ensuring that you become that individual, you become that person that you needed. And so, husband and wife, if you can actually have these conversations, it's always going to come back to being honest, truthful,
Mm-hmm.
developing that trust, and being able to have that space where you can be vulnerable, to have these types of conversations, so then you can put it on the table. You'll be like, this is what's going on. So I would still love for you to talk to somebody even though you feel like you've got a handle on it, that you've got your coping mechanisms, you've got your methodology in the way that you deal with it when you feel it coming on. I still think there's value in at least having, that secondary route, that opportunity to say, okay, you know what? Okay, cool. Just if nothing else, have somebody else validate that, okay, these are good, these are healthy. Who knows? There might be like a couple other methods that may help even more so.
Well, I mean, I do talk now. I don't I haven't made an appointment with a therapist, but
I know you've
now
spoken to your general, I know
oh
you're a general
no,
practitioner. I know
but
that you've,
even now, I mean, I'm like I can talk to, my mom is my rock. And so when I'm feeling some kind of way, whatever, I now can tell her because now she knows that I felt like that. And, she's like, well, why didn't you say anything? I was like, well, shoot. I didn't know. I didn't recognize that I was supposed to say anything. I just thought I just better deal with this.
well, it's like, because mom, your cape was showing.
Right. And that's another thing too, that when you have someone who you feel like not that I was trying to fill her shoes, but
But you're living up to the
right.
legacy of that
And I'm
individual.
like, my mama don't break. My mama don't be, but she did. She had her moments too.
Just didn't see it all the time.
Right. So it's just like getting back to the whole thing with being in the relationship.
Marriage is mental.
Well, it is. But we talk about having compassion. Well, you have to have compassion is key component for being able to communicate. But also, if I feel like my partner is supporting me, the commitment is there. You know, you're committed to me. I'm committed to you. I'm committed to this process. I communicate with you about what's going on with this process. And in turn, you're being compassionate or showing compassion for me while I'm going through the process. That's important. And a lot of people, I think they don't realize that having that support, how important it is. Because I know a couple people that are like, oh, I ain't gonna be dealing with that. That's just too much. I can't, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, you're in a relationship. So if I'm having a bad day, you having a bad day.
There isn't a single burden when you're married or in a committed relationship that you're supposed to carry by yourself. There's not a single, I don't care what the burden may be, finances, relationships, spiritual, sexual, parenting. There isn't anything. It's not supposed to be that way, because when you come together as a couple, it's all about coming together and being a couple. It's not that you lose your identity, but if you take a burden, a rock, and you put it on, like right now, the way we're sitting right now, if I was to put something on my shoulder and I could not get it up, you coming over next to me and bracing it with your shoulder and we hold it together, now we've evenly distributed the weight to where now that burden that was just insurmountable for one person becomes manageable for the two of us.
Yeah. Support is important to recovery.
I like that. It
I'm
really
glad you
is.
like it.
And it's also one of those situations or those things that we need to think about more often. I think so many times we try and tackle things one on one.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm not going to bother her with this, or I'm not going to bother him with that. Or I know if I say this to him, or if I tell him about this, he's just going to get angry. Or we make a lot of assumptions. And some of those assumptions may be based on truth, on experiences
Past
from the past.
experiences.
But that trust, if the trust is there, if the foundation has been laid, you've just got to keep putting more and more trust in that foundation. And that's something that we really want couples to walk away from this particular podcast and know that, number one, marriage is mental, because there's so many things that you go through. Everyone gets all caught up in the lovey-dovey physical part. She looked good, he looked good. Oh, they look great on their wedding day. Don't they look good together? That superficial stuff, gravity always wins. So there's going to come a point where this is going to sag. That muscle ain't going to look like it did a while ago. Things happen. And they're stressed. There's a variety of different things, but you have to understand that the way you have like we're coming up on 24 years of marriage in this upcoming January, this next month. The success of our marriage, and we're not on any pedestal by any means, but the success comes from the mental aspect of it, the working through it, the mental fortitude to get through the storms.
Mm-hmm.
Getting through the storm is not some kind of feat of strength. It's not that you've got to swim through any movie you watch that's disaster oriented. Any movie, I don't care if it's Titanic, if it's the great, what was it, The Great Storm. I can't think of. I'm thinking of scenes. I can't think of the actual names of the movies, but there's all these different movies. If it's weather oriented, look, what was that movie with Tom Hanks?
Castaway.
Castaway. It wasn't about him being
Scott Wilson.
Well, right, Wilson. It wasn't about him being the super strong guy that could chop down the tree and build a raft and get out of there. When it was all said and done, it was the mental part. And I think it's a great example of, and if you look at all these things that people go through in war movies, whatever, it's about the mental piece. And it's always going to come back to that. And when I say all of that about it being mental, is that when you're dealing with mental challenges, there's got to be a commitment and understanding that that mental fortitude that we're talking about isn't about being strong and being able to power your way through it. Realistically, it comes down to being vulnerable. The strength is in the vulnerability.
Well, yeah, you have to recognize when, like you said, we always think we have to power through and we have to do it ourselves. We have to recognize, like you always say, when we can't do it, when we need help, when I can't support, when I need you to come over here, or I need you to I need to make the phone call. I need to call the lady or whatever. The strongest thing that you could ever do is say, I need help.
Amen.
And we don't put enough emphasis on that part. So much is about, oh, and he did it all by himself. And so what happens is a lot of times, if I'm someone who's struggling, I feel like if I'm someone who's struggling and there's another person that's struggling, and all the emphasis is placed on how this one person that's struggling did it all by themselves, that's not going to make me want to go out and get help, because that is going to make me look worse. Like, oh, well, and that just puts more on me. And now I'm further depressed, or I'm more, we have to recognize when we are at our limit and say, hello,
honestly,
I need help. I can't do it anymore. But
see, that's the challenge, right? Because the media, the way that everybody wants to portray, oh, this person's a self-made millionaire. Who was it? They were talking about, was it Kylie Jenner or somebody?
Oh, somebody.
Self-made billionaire or whatever. What a load of crap. No, she doesn't. No, I take it she doesn't have a family that's famous or a super wealthy father before he, there's
always someone else
there's always. And even in marriage, the help is laying next to you.
Mm-hmm.
The help is sitting next to you. And sometimes when the two of you can't help each other because you're at each other's throat, then there's coaches like us. There's therapists that are out there. There are pastors that are out there. And their entire, passion is in being there, standing in the gap for you. So we have to break down and realize that, number one, it's okay to understand that you're going to have these mental challenges when it comes to mental health, whether it's depression, anxiety, euphoria. There's a variety of things that can transpire. And just know that it's not that you're not normal. It's just that you're just a little off from what you feel is your norm, because normal is different for every person.
Mm-hmm.
And so don't let somebody tell you that you're not normal. But if somebody brings to your attention that, you seem just like a little off, or, I recognize that there's a difference in you, don't take it as a slight. Don't take it as an insult. Think it was like, oh, okay, well, if you're not doing yourself harm, that's great. But harm comes in many forms. It's not just I wasn't physically going to hurt myself. I was going to commit suicide. I wasn't going to cut myself, because cutting is a thing. I wasn't going to, do any damage to myself. But what about the hurt when it comes to limiting yourself from taking that promotion because you don't believe in yourself. You don't have the self-confidence. Limiting yourself and telling your spouse what your needs are when it comes to what I need emotionally from you. So you just suffer in silence within a relationship. There's all kinds of suffering that takes place that you don't have to go through. You don't have to go through alone.
I was about to say, I think that's the key. You don't have to do it by yourself. You know, sorry, excuse me.
She's COVID.
We don't have to suffer by ourselves. And you know, when just even our vows, when we think of in sickness and in health, we always think of the physical. I never thought of mental.
Amen.
You know,
something they don't talk about. I mean, maybe it's inferred, but we don't really. That's a good thing to look up. I wonder if there's any scripture. I'm sure there is. There's scripture to cover everything, but it'd be nice to kind of find out if you can think of a scripture out there that relates to mental health. I would love for you to actually send it to us in our text line, and you can text it to us at area code 918-351-2799. You'll become part of our Iron Tribe community, but I would really love for you to send us a scripture and let us know, your thoughts on it, because I would love to talk about that. As a matter of fact, we've alluded to this in the past, but as we're coming up on the end of the year, we only have really 4 more. After this one, there's 4 more. Is it 4? Yeah, 4 more podcasts for the remainder of this year. 5, including this one, episode 117 that you're listening to right now. But going into 2021, we have a health series that we're putting together. We're going to have a series of interviews called the Him and Her Health Series. And mental health is one of those things that we're going to bring on a professional to talk about. There's going to be other things talking about women's health, men's health, talking about the health of your finances. So there's a variety of things that we're going to be doing. But this is one that really isn't clearly defined as far as being one of those pillars upon which we should be standing as a couple.
Oh, you mean about the mental
health?
Yeah. Well, like I said, one thing, operate in compassion, be honest and truthful, but also be supportive of the person that's going through it. It's not a good feeling when you feel like there's something wrong and you can't define what's wrong, or you feel like your partner or your spouse won't understand, and they may not understand. But just knowing that I can come to Lovey and be like, oh, I'm having one of those days, and his response is going to be supportive. His response is not going to make me feel worse than I feel already, because unfortunately that's something that can happen, and then it just can send you over the edge.
And that's one thing we don't want to happen for anybody, anyone at all. So I think this is one of those times where we want to bring it to a close. And Snooks, where is the I Can for couples? She lost it.
Really? I lost it.
So we're going to do 2 for the road. And this is the part where we actually use the I Can for couples to give you an affirmation to kind of focus on for the remainder of the week. 1 for one spouse, 1 for the other. And so she pulled hers.
I need my spectacles.
Get your spectacles, girl. Get your eyes. Okay. What does yours say?
I can tell my partner how much I love him or her.
Mine says, I can gaze at my partner and just smile.
I love you.
I love you too. All right. So
we did it. No.
This is the part. So for the audio of the podcast, those of you that are listening, the podcast in your car and your headphones, wherever you're at, what you're going to hear now is 8 minutes and 46 seconds of silence.
Oh, before we do that, I just want to say just prayers for a family, Adrienne Bird. She's one of my favorite authors. I just found out today that she passed away last month. I'm devastated. And so just want to pray for her family.
Okay. So if there's somebody that you need to really reflect on and think about, take the next 8 minutes and 46 seconds to reflect on that family. Say a prayer for those people that you know are in need. Say a prayer for our nation. Say a prayer for the world. But the only way you can truly impact the world, the nation, your state, your city, your district, your community, your neighborhood, is to start right there in your own heart, in your own home. And it goes from inside out. It always works from inside out. So we ask people to reflect on how they can be the best neighbor, brother, sister, citizen that they can possibly be during these 8 minutes and 46 seconds. So we can build a better world for everyone. That's all we ask. So with that said, until the next time, be blessed.
Bye-bye.